Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Stage 2 of the Call of Duty Global Pro League. We are live at playoffs, of course, and it is day 2. We already had one fantastic day yesterday with some pretty interesting results, of course. This is the pre-show. My name is Ben. I'm going to be hosting the studio throughout the day. Joining me, of course, Call of Duty World Champ TP, former European professional player Momo, and Call of Duty XP champion Merc at the end there. But let's jump straight into it, boys. We've got a lot to talk about. We should first talk a little bit about the prizing. What is on the line? $500,000. I mean, first place walks away with $200,000, second place $120,000. Then, of course, you think, in what, 2 weeks' time, we go to COD Champs? If you win both those events, let me tell you, your bank account's going to be looking real nice, that's for sure. But I do want to get straight into the action. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts with what we saw yesterday. Of course, we'll take a look at our winners bracket. And in terms of the top side, of course, FaZe versus Envy goes to a Game 5 team. That was one of the best series I've seen in a while.
It's an absolutely back and forth series, to say the least. All of those respawns were completely lopsided into one team's favor. Envy is taking that fourth map, Retail Hardpoint, 50-point clubbing FaZe. But on the other side of it, the first couple of respawns, FaZe completely dominates. That last search and destroy, though, just so many mistakes on the side of FaZe. They were really beating themselves up about it, as they probably should. Envy really clutch up to make it to round 2. Then,
of course, underneath that, we saw the Luminosity versus Splice matchup, a rematch of Stage 1 finals. And Merc, that was a complete and utter blowout.
Yeah, I mean, Luminosity, they've kept playing at their top form. Classic had an absolutely beast day. Octane still probably the best player in the world right now. Splice, though, you know, Mad Cat Jur didn't have a great day. They just still, you know, I don't know what happened from sort of Stage 1 to now. Even Anaheim, where they play second, just seems like they're not in that same form.
And then, of course, you see winners round 2. That sets up a Team Envious versus Luminosity matchup. Phil, want to kick this discussion off with Team Envy, because yesterday, at times, they looked like they were lost, and at times, they looked flawless. It was a weird day for them.
Yeah, it really was. You got to go back to their pool, you know, and think how they actually got here. And, you know, it wasn't an easy road by any means. They were definitely an underdog, which we've not said for Envy for a while. But these guys, they turned up in their pool. They've made it here already. And, you know, they've made a big impact already on day 1. They're much better, obviously, on S&D from their pool, taking both yesterday. Hard points obviously got split. Very odd, of course, with the 50-point club, the 100-point club. But for me, I think these guys, they are getting better and better. They look like, you know, they've put that Anaheim performance behind them, and they're really starting to collectively get through things as a team.
Yeah, they definitely are. As you mentioned, they obviously didn't win the uplink, those stats, 0%. But yeah, you've only played one map. I expect to see that potentially improve, or at least hopefully improve, I should say. The big problem, though, is who is sat at the other side of the main stage, Teep. I mean, Luminosity Gaming yesterday, they were impeccable.
It's not just yesterday, it's been the last couple of months, and the fact that all 4 players on this team, multiple events now, they all just sort of hover around over a 1.15 KD, nearing towards 1.2. When all 4 of your players are able to stay that consistent in all the respawns, search and destroy they seem to have fixed as well. Who do you even call the worst player on this team at this point? And the fact that, you know, people like Slacked and Saint on this team are the ones going unnoticed, it's unreal.
I was going to say, yesterday we gave a lot of love to Octane and Classic Merc, because, you know, they were going off. We didn't even mention the other 2, and they played amazing as well.
Now, that's what's so scary about this team, right? When you talk about matchups just going against these guys, well, who's going to outperform who? Well, for a little bit, we thought Saints was the second best player on this team. Now, well, Classic is performing at such a top level. Just seems like, who knows, today maybe Slack will be that best player. It's so hard to tell. These guys have so much talent.
Predictions for that top series, boys. Which way are we going? Teep, I'll start with you.
I'm going to give Envy some of the credit. I think they're only going to take one map, though. LG seems to be rolling on all cylinders. Okay. Cap having, you know, not the best performances, some of those respawns yesterday, so 3-1 LG.
I'm going to say it's not going to be blowouts in the maps, but I do think it's going to be a 3-0. I think LG will take this one.
Yeah, I think Slasher having a sort of an MVP performance, he'll have to keep that up. The other guys definitely need to step. They know that. They tweeted last night, like, hey, we know we can't make those mistakes against Luminosity. Again, Luminosity probably the best team in the world right now, but you have to give love to Luminosity. Again, I think it's a 3-0 or a 3-1 towards them.
And of course, once again, back to the bracket. The other games we saw on the bottom side yesterday, E United versus Enigma 6. E6 started the series off strong. They win map number 1, but then it just felt like the hype from E United was a little too much to handle, Team.
I think it was a combination of that, but E6 was really just not playing very good Call of Duty overall. We all know how well these guys can slay. Royalty's been an absolute beast. General's very, very consistent on that slaying category as well. But when it came down to the wire, especially going back to that retail hardpoint I saw from E6. I just feel like they were making not very smart decisions, not getting those score streaks.
Right.
Very simple things that could have elevated their gameplay.
Then, of course, underneath that, Optic Gaming versus Fnatic. Phil, that was quick.
Yeah, it really was. You know, I think on the desk we said 3-0 throughout, and, you know, it's a very easy prediction when you've got Optic Gaming coming up against the likes of Fnatic. Yes, great team, but Optic Gaming, different beast.
But that does now set up an interesting one. E-United versus Optic Gaming. Clayster against the Green Wall once again. Merc, how do you see this series panning out? Of course, for E-United, they look fantastic.
Yeah, this is a tough one, right? Because I feel like Optic Gaming's form, I feel like we still haven't seen them at their best, right? And E-United, these guys keep getting better and better. Clayster is very comfortable. They seem like they're just having a ton of fun. It really, to me, just relies on Pristini and Silly. If they perform well, it's going to be a very tough series for Optic Gaming.
Definitely when the Twins played very, very well as well. I think you have to look for Silly to not start off slow. He has been starting off very slow in those respawns, Teep, and I feel like against Optic Gaming, you can't do that because Optic will snowball that.
I think this is a very good first sort of test of elite caliber for this E-United lineup. Going back to history, just Clayster versus Optic. Yes, he was on the FaZe roster. They didn't really have the best of times when they're playing Optic previous this year, but overall, if Clay can have a good game versus Optic, he's always that one that seems to give them trouble. But the rest of these guys, I think Pristini, RCs have been at the top of the game lately. Clayster just seems to imbue some sort of, you know, other beast out of RCs lately, which is really fun to watch.
It definitely is. Then, of course, on the flip side of the main stage, we're going to have Optic Gaming, who are a little critical, Momo, of them in terms of their hardpoint play in group stages. Are they back to winning form, do you think, now?
I don't think that winner bracket round 1 for them really tested them. I think, like Teep said, this is a real test. For me, they can't take this easy. They can't take it lightly. This is going to be one of their biggest challenges this weekend. But I think they, you know, if they played their best Call of Duty, and you hear this a lot in the interviews, they will win. You know, if they play at their best, they will win. But have we seen them play at their best for the past couple of months? Absolutely not. So far, so good with a 3-0 over Fnatic. That's a lot of confidence going into today. I want a group green-like performance from Seth. He played phenomenal. They keep that up alongside Formal. They could really take this whole weekend.
Yeah, when you look at this matchup, you have to talk about the Search and Destroy, right? Because Optic Gaming, I mean, we've talked about it on this desk. They're probably the best Search and Destroy team in the world. E-United will try to have to steal one, but that doesn't mean they're weak in the respawns. I mean, we've seen them start out slow, and that's going to be the big thing. We know E-United, they can bring the energy. Guys like Karma, guys even like Formal, they cannot start slow in that map #1.
With that said, predictions for the series, Teep. Which way you lean? I know this is a tough one.
Man, it's really going to come down to the slaying and the first hard point, in my opinion. I think that's going to set the sort of precedent for the rest of the series. I guess if I had to pick based on what I've seen recently, I'm going to go towards Optic Gaming. I think Scump's been that sort of top player again.
Okay.
You know, he's been averaging like a 1.2, 1.3. And the whole year he's been, you know, bad at the beginning, but ever since then, just an upward trajectory overall. Optic 3-1.
Momo?
I'm going to go Optic in a game 5. I do think E-United take the... I think they could very well take both hard points.
United's good at search, though, too.
I know. Yeah, they really are. This is going to be a real close game.
So, Optic.
I'll be a little different.
Yeah, there you go.
Why not? I'll go United game 5. I think it's going to go the distance, but you know, if United does lose, you know, maybe we see them play a potential FaZe matchup, right? If FaZe is able to win, if FaZe is able to win their game this morning, if they're able to beat Splice and United loses, well, we have that FaZe versus E-United battle, which we definitely want to see. So I think we're all sort of hoping for that. But we want to see E-United succeed.
There's so many possibilities. I mean, we could potentially get FaZe versus Optic.
Yeah.
Even get FaZe United. I mean, the storylines are definitely going to develop. And of course, they're going to develop maybe potentially in the losers bracket. We'll take a look at how things stand down there right now. Of course, rough day 1 for FaZe. They draw stage 1 champion Splice. I mean, we talk about FaZe, obviously the new addition of Gunless TP. It still looks like they're having maybe a couple of growing pains.
Yeah, they look very, very good at times and very, very bad. For me, though, I think Zuma has been that guy on this team that hasn't really changed his gameplay for the better. Gunless seems to be pretty consistent in the respawns. Since Gunless coming onto this team, Attach has been, you know, back to that top form we saw from him probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And then Enable's been fairly consistent as well in that MV4 role. So Zuma's the guy for me that really needs to turn things around.
Then, of course, on the flip side for Splice, yesterday it didn't really look much better than group play, to be honest, Momo.
Really didn't. Splice, they've got to step it up. Again, like I said about Optic, when they play at their best, they are phenomenal. These 4 boys, they can turn up, they can change this tournament around, and they can upset a lot of people here. You know, they can take down FaZe. They may, you know, find themselves up against an Optic or an E-United at the next round, but once these guys get on a roll, we've seen it before. They won stage 1. Don't forget that, guys.
That's the thing, Phil, is we haven't seen them on a roll in a long time. Yes,
True.
that potential's there. We know they can win the entire tournament, right? They can be one of the best teams in the world, but something just isn't clicking with these guys. Not sure what it is. Something is definitely off.
Then, of course, the bottom side of that losers bracket, Enigma 6 versus Fnatic. I think we all expected Fnatic to go down there. I think a few would have expected Enigma 6 to join them when you look at their winners round 1 matchup. But in terms of that series, Teep, I feel like this potentially, I don't want to say it's an easy one for E6, but I feel like E6 should win it.
It should be fairly easy, to be honest, and I hate just bashing the EU side over and over again. Obviously not making fans when I'm being such a critic sometimes, but
that's what you hate to do.
Yeah, overall, I just, there's a huge difference between the slaying of Fnatic and all the other teams here in this 8-team bracket. I just don't think they have what it takes, especially going against the likes of Proto. I think they're just outclassed, simple as that.
Then, of course, talking about Fnatic, Phil, I mean, do they have much of a chance in your opinion here?
Again, it's going to be a real test. I think there is definitely a potential for them to upset E6. To go far in the tournament, I think that might be as far as they do go, but they can definitely push E6.
Now, of course, moving forward, I want to talk about a couple of players who impressed you and players who need to step up. We're going to start with those that impressed. Merc, I want to get your opinion here. Who was the one player from yesterday that really stood out?
Yeah, for Optic Gaming, we have to talk about Formal. I think he is #1 in the KD leaderboard from day one. He had a 1.51 in the response. I think 1.59 overall. That Slayer, that's a little low, but you know, he's playing just fine. They're winning their games. I mean, 22, is it a little low? I'm not sure. But the respawn, or the S&D KD, 2.25. He's been consistent. I mean, again, earlier this year, he was probably one of the best players, you know, in the game.
Momo, your pick?
For myself, I've gone with Slasher. I think it's something you had to highlight. You've got to think of the game that he actually played. It was against FaZe. Yes, in one of those respawns, he got 100-point clubbed. But look at that. He bounces back. He's got a good respawn, a good S&D. I think he is kind of the catalyst for Emby's success.
And I think the biggest thing that we have to note through that is, you know, he kept that high KD through those bad maps as well, which I think is very impressive. It is one-day games, but it's very nice.
I think it was like a 3.57 in one of the S&Ds.
That's what I was going to say.
Teep, who impressed you yesterday?
I'm going with Classic again. He's been my pick, you know, going back to their group. Yeah, the S&D KD a little bit low there, but they were able to win it. Not a big deal, but that Slayer number,
that's the highest we've ever seen.
Okay, it's 1 day of respawns, you know, a couple of respawns,
hey man,
but that's insane. I would even argue he's been playing better than Octane the best month or so. The guy's been absolutely insane. Best E-Red in the game for me right now.
Fair enough. Now the flip side of the coin, who has to step up? Merc, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I went with Zuma here. I just felt like he had a really bad series in that game #5. He made some really bad decisions. He's one of those players, as we were talking about earlier on, we just felt like he hasn't really found his form with Gunless, Attach, Enable. They've seemed fine. But on the flip side, Zuma, again, at 0.86, only 19 Slayers and a 0.55 in S&D. This just can't happen if FaZe wants to, you know, potentially win this tournament.
We talk about growing pains, they're definitely still having them. Momo, for you, who is it that needs to step up today?
Well, Zuma's obviously going to be going up against Splice, as he chose someone from Splice, and that's going to be Jerd. I just think overall this is a European player, which a lot of people in Europe, they idolize, they want to be like, and I think Jerd, he has that X factor. He can be that superstar, but to see a long run going for Splice, this man needs to step it up. He is a fantastic E-Rad player. He's very versatile, but overall, Slayer rating, respawn, S&D KD, it's not good enough.
Yeah, definitely not the best. Speaking of Splice, Teepa, I know you looked at another Splice player. They've not really had too much success. You went at Mad Cat.
Yeah, I was going to pick Jerd as well, but Mad Cat, you know, I think what really tells the story of these guys is the head down, that sort of camera shot we got from Mad Cat after that series yesterday. Just not very happy with his performance. You can obviously see why right there. Just hasn't been on that same sort of level. The veterans on Splice need to turn things around today if they're going to have a top finish here.
They most definitely are. Of course, the first game of the day that we're going to see FaZe Clan versus Splice. Real quick, predictions down the line. Merc, start with you.
I think I'm going to go FaZe 3-1. I just haven't seen the Splice that we've seen at stage 1 in Anaheim, so I'm going to go with FaZe.
Momo?
I'm going to go Splice in a game 5. I think they're going to turn it around today.
European bias?
Yeah, 100%. I'm taking a FaZe 3-0. Splice has not been impressive to me at all.
Sorry.
Just give him a prediction.
I'm sorry. So that was a FaZe 3-0,
yeah,
a Splice 3-2, and Merc
FaZe 3-1.
A FaZe 3-1. Well, that first game of the day is definitely going to be an interesting one. Of course, FaZe lost yesterday in a crazy, crazy Game 5 fashion against Team Envious. We saw them yesterday as well after that matchup. Not happy, of course. Attach dropped, I think it was 16 kills in the Game 5. So you're going to look for them to really step up and have a solid performance against our Stage 1 champions, Splice. Day 2 of the Stage 2 playoffs kicks off right now.